the unexpected kindness. Let me tell you about something that happened not too long ago. It was one of those days, you know, the kind where the sky just won't stop crying. The rain was coming down in heavy sheets, and the streets were crowded with people rushing to get out of the cold. Everyone was hurrying along, umbrellas up, heads down, except for one person. Inside a small, cozy bakery, right on the corner of the street, there was a young man named Mark. Mark had been walking all day, looking for work. His clothes were soaked, his shoes squished with every step, and his face, well, let's just say you could see the exhaustion written all over it. Now, Mark was sitting at one of those tiny bakery tables, looking at the few coins in his hand. Not enough for a meal, barely enough for a cup of coffee. He sighed, staring out the window as the rain kept falling. But just as Mark was about to leave, the door chimed softly. Ding, and in walked an old lady. She wasn't anything special to look at. Her clothes were old, her coat looked like it had seen better days, but her smile, oh her smile, it was warm, like sunshine on a cold day. The old lady sat down at the counter and ordered herself a simple cup of tea. Nothing fancy, just tea. And after a moment, she turned and looked at Mark. She must have noticed how down he looked, because she got up from her seat, walked over to his table, and sat down right across from him, just like that. "You look like you could use a warm drink, young man," she said, her voice gentle. Mark blinked, surprised. He quickly looked down at his wallet and said, "Oh no, I'm fine, thank you. I don't really have enough for another cup." But the old lady just smiled kindly, softly. "That's all right," she said. "Sometimes it's not about what you have. It's about what you give." And with that, she slid her cup of tea across the table, right in front of him. For a moment, Mark didn't know what to do. He just stared at the cup. But then, slowly, a smile spread across his face. It wasn't the tea that warmed him that day. It was her kindness. The kind of kindness that can turn a cold, rainy day into something beautiful. A week later, Mark came back to that same bakery. But this time, things were different. He had found a job. His clothes were dry, his face was brighter, and there was a spring in his step. He sat down with his own cup of tea and glanced around. That's when he noticed a young woman at the counter. She looked tired, probably just as tired as he had been the week before. She was counting her change, her brow furrowed, clearly not having enough for the drink she wanted. Mark watched her for a second. Then he smiled, remembering the old lady's words. He got up from his seat, walked over to her, and asked, "Would you like to share a cup of tea?" The young woman looked up at him, surprised, just as he had been. And just like that, the kindness was passed on. You see, sometimes the smallest gestures, like a cup of tea, can make the biggest difference in someone's life. And the best part? Kindness spreads from one person to another, just like a warm drink on a cold day. And so, remember this. Whenever you have the chance, share a little kindness. You never know how much it might mean to someone else. And if this story touched your heart, maybe you can share it with someone who needs a little warmth today. Subscribe for daily uplifting stories, and let's fill each day with positivity and warmth.